Alright guys, in this video I want to go over the console in the browser because this is something that we'll be using throughout the entire course and you'll be using throughout your entire career as a front-end or full-stack web developer. Now every browser, no matter which browser it is, I'm using Chrome, they all have what are called developer tools or dev tools, and in Chrome you can go to the menu and you can go to more tools and then developer tools, or you can on Windows, I believe it's F12, you can toggle the dev tools, and then on a Mac you can do Command Option I. Now you'll see there's a bunch of tabs here. You're probably familiar with the Elements tab where you can highlight elements, you can see the CSS, you can even edit page elements. Of course this is only on my machine. If I reload it goes back, but you can do a lot with the Elements tab. But that's for HTML, CSS. The console is where we'll see all of our front-end JavaScript warnings and errors, and we can log things to the console, and that's what I want to get into in this video. Now you can also go directly to the console with Command or Control. I think on Windows it's Control Alt J. I know on Mac it's Command Option J, and it'll go right to the console. Now, as I mentioned, this is where you're going to see your warnings and errors. For example, if I go into my script here and I just put in an A and I save that and it runs, we're going to see this reference error. It says A is not defined, shows me the line number and the file where it's coming from. All right, so very helpful with warnings and errors. And of course, we can log to the console from our script, which I'll show you in a second. But we can also type JavaScript right in here. So if I wanted to do an alert, I could execute that, and you'll see that we get this alert with 1. Now we're going to see undefined on the next line, because what this is if there's a result of the expression, then it will be put here. And there's no result to alert. We're just running an alert function. If I were to do, let's say, 1 plus 1, then it's going to show me 2. All right, I can also set variables. So let's say I wanted to set x to the value of 100, and we'll go over variables and data types and all that, but I can do that here as well. I get undefined because there's no result to that. If I were to do, let's say, x plus 10, then we're going to get 110 because x is equal to 100. Okay, I could use the date function if I wanted to get the date. So there's all types of stuff we can do here, but you're not going to do that very often. Maybe to do some testing and see if something is available on a DOM element or something like that, but it's not too often you'll type JavaScript in here. Now to clear your console, there's a few things you can do. You can use the clear function, so clear with some parentheses, and that'll clear it. Also you can do Command or Control L, that'll clear it up as well, or you can just reload the page. All right, so I'm going to come over here into my script, and I'm going to show you how we can log to the console in a couple different ways. Now we do this with the console object. In fact, if we go over here and we type console in the console and hit enter, we're going to see the console object. Now objects are common in just about every programming language, and you can think of them as they're an entity that have properties and methods. A property is like an attribute or a value, where a method is a function, something that does something. And you can see that these are actually all methods. They have an F next to them. They're functions, and functions are executed with parentheses. And don't worry if you don't understand that. We'll get into functions in a little bit. Now there's quite a bit here, but don't let that overwhelm you because you're only going to use maybe 5% of these. Most of the time you're going to be using console log or console.log. So let's come over to our script. I'm actually going to reload the page just to clear that up. And let's look at console.log. Now what this is console is an object. And remember, an object has properties and methods. A method is a function, so log is the method that I'm using. And to execute a function or a method, you have to use parentheses. So I'm executing the log method that's on the console object. And we use this dot syntax in JavaScript to access properties and methods. Okay, now we want to log something, so in here, in the method or in the function, we want to pass in an argument. So I'm going to pass in a number, let's say 100. And if I save that and it runs, you'll see that now in the console, we're seeing 100. Now, any piece of data in JavaScript, or really in any programming language, has a type, and this is the type of number. And I'm going to go over the data types in the video after the next one. So let's say we want to log a different type, like a string. So a string is just a string of characters. So a string has to be wrapped in either double quotes or single quotes. So I'll just say hello world, and I'll save that, and you'll see that will log the string. And notice they're different colors. So the number is purple, the string is white. Now, if you want to log more than one thing at the same time, you can do that as well. So let's say we want to log a number, we'll say 20, and then a string, and then let's say a Boolean, which is a true or false. So if I go ahead and save that, you'll see that it'll log those three things, those three values. Now, in many cases, or I'd say most cases, you're going to be logging variables or results to functions. It's not that often you'll log straight strings like that, unless it's like it worked or something, if you're running a function or something like that and you want to see if it worked. So let's just create a variable, and we'll get into variables more soon. But if I just set, let's say, x to the value of 100, then I can come down here and console.log x. And of course, that's going to give me 100. All right, now there is another extension that I don't think I mentioned, and that is, let's see, where is it? Right here, JavaScript ES6 code snippets. And it just gives you some convenient snippets, and one of which that I use quite a bit is CLG. So if I do CLG enter, it gives me a console log. So I'll use that quite a bit. There's also some other ones I use, like try catch. You can do if statements. You know, and I don't usually use it for like if statements and stuff, but you will see me do CLG and maybe a few others. Now, in addition to log, we also have console.error. So I'll say just alert, and that'll log to the console, but you can see it has this red background, red border, and it also shows you the scope. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to use it. I typically don't. I usually use console.log for everything. But remember, the console is for the developer. This isn't for the user. Users don't come to your website and open up the console. Now, in addition to alert, we also have console.warn. So I'll just say warning. If I save that, you'll see we get the yellow background. Pretty much the same thing, just a different color. And then we can also do tables for objects. So I'm going to do console.table, and I know we haven't gone over objects yet, but there are object literals, I should say, which are key value pairs, and they're wrapped in curly braces. So I'll just do a simple object with a name as the key, Brad as the value, and then email as the next key, and then Brad at Gmail for the value. And if I save it, you'll see this object is printed out as a table, which is kind of nice. And it also shows it as the object. Next one is groups. So we can do console.group and give that group a name. Let's call it simple. And then we can add some, we'll just take these three here and put those right underneath. And then we want to end the group. So we can say console.groupEnd. And if I save that and we check it out, you'll see that we have this simple with this collapsible arrow, and the warning, the alert, and the log are now under that, in that group. All right, now this isn't something that I use, but I just want you guys to know that this stuff is available. You'll probably only end up using console log 95% of the time. But again, I do want you to know some of the stuff that's available on this console object. Now, another thing that we can do that's kind of cool, you probably won't use it much, but I do want to show it to you, is adding CSS styles to your console logs. So what we can do is create a variable, I'll call it styles, and I'm assuming that you guys know CSS, but we can put some styles in here, like let's say padding 10 pixels. We'll say, let's do background dash color, and we'll do white. And then let's do the color, the text color, which will be green. Okay, so we just have a variable with some CSS. Now what we can do is a console log, and I'll put a string in here of hello world. And the way that we apply the styles is at the beginning of the string, we can add a %C, and then as a second parameter, we can pass in our styles. Now, if I save that and run it, you'll see down here we get the string of hello world with the CSS styles applied. Now there are some other methods on the console object, but I don't want to spend too much time on stuff you're probably never going to use. So in the next video, we're going to look at code commenting. We're also going to talk about some of the helpful keyboard shortcuts that you can use while writing code.